I'm Jim Check with Ian Burns, managing editor all the way out there in the nation's capital. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. Absolutely spectacular. And how are things looking out there before we dive into this?
Whatever's going on there in Kelowna, the opposite is going on here. It's wet and gloomy. Some very nice deciduous trees there, turning all kinds of nice colours, but that's about it.
Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. That's what's going on in Ottawa. Lots of meatballs. Hey, let's get into it. Is Canada headed into another election? Trump calls out Ford. Expert says Canada unprepared in trade negotiations. Military not only underfunded, under-equipped, underpaid, and now their housing is not fit for living in. The youth told to go south for opportunity. Liberals have a car wreck on their hands. Liberals and CBC are one and the same, not transparent and not accountable. Imagine that. More climate taxes being floated along with the media shilling for them. Calls get louder for Rustad to resign. And lots of winds of change blowing in the world, in the politics world. But we'll see where this all goes. But kicking it off, though, is, there's lots of talk that this budget will not pass. And that would bring into a vote of no confidence and an election.
Yeah, well, it's a bit odd. The Liberals have come out and said, McKinnon, Steve McKinnon, who's the leader of the House, and he's also the Transport Secretary.
From him, actually.
Yeah, one of the real big boys in the cabinet. He's come out and said, he's basically just said, "Oh, you want an election? Like, do it." He's kind of challenged the other parties, and it's just trying to smash some heads together, I think, to try and get them to realize that none of them want an election, which is true. Nor do the Liberals. Nobody wants an election.
Let's play the clip, though.
I mean, yeah.
I just want to say, because I haven't said this in English yet, that we're 2 weeks from the budget. I think that what I'm seeing in Parliament worries me. We have two opposition parties, principally, that aren't taking this matter very seriously. Canadians are looking for certainty. We had an election 6 months ago. Canadians are looking for predictability, stability, and especially a plan. We intend to present a plan to Canadians to deal with this very critical moment in our history. And what we're seeing is our opposition parties, the Bloc Québécois, who, without having even read the budget, eliminate the possibility that they will support it, and the Conservatives making just ludicrous demands with respect to the budget.
It sounds like you're worried about maybe Canada going to another.
That's good. Yeah, ludicrous demands, meaning fiscal responsibility. Are those the ludicrous demands that they're asking for?
But then he went on to say, if anyone out there is trying to push for an election, I think they're misreading the Canadian public's will. Basically saying, it's another way of saying, I've seen the polls, not just the ones that you've seen, the public ones, but our polls as well. And, we're going to win an election, so don't be stupid. It's almost kind of taunting them.
Yeah, but they, what he did say is that the Canadians want a plan. Yeah, you were supposed to provide that plan. You said you had a plan, and it's been how long before we get to see this so-called plan that you're trying to dress up to be, you're trying to put lipstick on a pig and sell Canadians a plan. You even went out and got some IMF person to shill for you on this plan when you didn't like what the Jason Jacques, the PBO's office, had to say about your so-called plan.
Indeed, and there's a lot of chit chat out there that this budget is going to be quite a hard one to swallow, not just because of the deficit, but for other reasons. It's going to feature certain cuts that are going to upset the usual sort of special interest groups.
Yeah.
So
Desjardins came out too.
They're going to need a lot of propaganda, aren't they? They're going to need a lot of defense.
Desjardins came out too and says that estimate this federal budget will be the highest in 30 years. Well, maybe they should take a look at the new format they're going to give them. Maybe they can fool them with it. I doubt it, but higher spending, lower revenues could push this deficit to 70 billion or higher. And I think a lot of people are talking about higher. I think higher is where this thing is going to end up. But Doug
Yeah, maybe
Ford's
they just
commercials.
consider themselves like they've got a cap of 100. Just try and stay beneath 100. That might be their attitude.
Just make a number up. Just make a number. Doug Ford's $75 million ads got the attention of Donald Trump. Let's listen into what he has to say about those ads. And perhaps we're going to hear what he says. Are we going to get that?
Believers in tariffs, and I even see foreign countries now that we are doing very well with taking ads. Don't go with tariffs. They're taking ads. I saw an ad last night from Canada. If I was Canada, I'd take that same ad also. But they're actually on television taking ads. But I do believe that everybody's too smart for that. We have a very, very big and important case coming up. We should win the case based on the legal merit. We should also win the case based on all of the things I just said. But we're a wealthy country. We're believers in.
There you go. Well, he said he would do it himself. But there you go, Doug Ford. It's Trump approved. He's probably just thinking, well, you're going to spend $75 million in the U.S. advertising to somebody that's not going to care. He's like, we'll take the cash. Thanks. Thank you very much.
It's a lot of jobs, isn't it? That's going to translate into. It's good news for Americans.
That's right. Just like here, you're going to spend $75 million talking to Americans. Great. Thank you. Thank you. And how does he say it? Thank you very much. It's the biggest ad campaign ever.
Some say the biggest ever.
But here's the biggest thing. Expert says that Canada's unprepared in its negotiations, even though Melanie Joly paid a Democrat, what was that number? Like a couple $100 an hour to tell them how to talk to Republicans. Obviously not working, but let's just listen to this here.
You described Canadian negotiators arriving with fragmented notes while American negotiators arrive with sharpened strategies. Now, in fairness to our negotiators, you do explain in some of your writings that this is the result of 10 years of not having sufficient institutional capacity. And if I can summarize your approach under the current government, you said it lacks routine, structured, and ongoing engagement. It has slower responses, fragmented input, gaps in practical knowledge, so that, quote, U.S. negotiators consistently entered the room with more substantial leverage, and that leaves critical gaps in our negotiating preparedness. So, Mr. Appleton, given that, is it your view that Canada, under the current approach, is unprepared for the CUSMA review?
Simply, yes, we are unprepared. And the reason is we're tying one arm or two arms behind our back. The Americans have 1,000 people in these ITACs available, waiting for them, able to advise on drafts as they go along, to give real, meaningful, committed types of focused information. We gave that up over 20 years ago. And that is not what we need to do to be prepared. And I know that public policy schools across this country, working with the Balsillie School, are trying to create a capacity building right now to be able to help give us that. But the government has to take the offer. We can give a hand out, but they have to give their hand back if they want to do this. I don't know why we would not be doing that. I don't know why we'd walk in with less precise information, less capacity. And that is exactly the way to failure, and we can't let that happen if we want to succeed in the incoming negotiations.
I mean, you just look at the talent pool down there. I mean, we say that just in Trump's cabinet versus Mark Carney's cabinet, and you have to shake your head, right? Just compare Rubio to Anita Anand. Why did it go black there? What's going on? Flickering back and forth. Oh, okay. We're back. My monitor just went dead, and I just thought the whole thing went dead. But yeah, and then it goes again. Ian, are you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, it's just my monitor's kind of going crazy. But
yeah, this is tragic though. This because Canada has a reputation as Donald Trump. Just listen to Trump talk about trade negotiations with Canada. That's all you need to do. That's the only evidence you need to prove that Canada has a reputation for being really, really good at trade negotiations, believe it or not. It's like absolutely like one of the best in the world. And when the British left the European Union, I can remember that because they lacked trade negotiators because it was all being done by the European Union. They weren't allowed to negotiate their own trade deals. So they looked around and they tried to poach
Off
some
again,
trade
Nick.
negotiators from Canada because of the great reputation that Canada has for negotiating trade deals. So if there's anything happening, if there's anything negative happening to that sort of A team that Canada has, then that is a big worry. That's something to be very concerned about, I think.
I think it's the connector because both go off at the same time. Sorry, we're just having a little bit of technical difficulties here. But, yeah, we're just, like ill-equipped to do these things. And then we talked about, we've been talking about the military here for a long time, underfunded, under-equipped, and underpaid. And now an audit says the housing that we're putting in is unfit. Can it get any worse for the Canadian military?
This comes from the Auditor General, and this is actually there's a big reveal buried in that report and the language that she uses, which I'm just going to get here. I'm just going to get the exact language so I can read it out. So it's Karen Hogan, Auditor General. She's talking about how they're in poor physical condition. They don't have running water or safe drinking water or working toilets. And then she says, for some reason, she thought this was a good idea. I have no idea why. But she includes the phrase, you and I wouldn't want to live in these places. That's what she says. And then goes on to say, and yet we expect the Canadian forces to live in them. Just think about, not just that on the face of it, think about what that implies. People that work in the Canadian Armed Forces, it's not her. It's not people like her. It's not the sort of the suit and tie class, not the sort of people who are going to be reading this report. It's other people. It's those other people over there who do that. It's just astonishing language that reveals so much and answers so many questions that people might have about why the Canadian military is treated like garbage. There's your reason, because the people who decide what money they get, what houses they live in, what conditions they endure, would never join the military in a million years. They don't think that's worth doing. Not enough money, not enough prestige. It's not a good life. So instead, they go into PR and consultancy and things like that, and law and finance. Those are the sort of glamorous jobs that they work in. And then they look at the military as it's like this extraneous entity. It's like this foreign entity full of strange people from rural parts of Canada or something like that. And I just think the sooner you understand that, the sooner you'll see why it is that they get second best and everything. And also why, what we've talked about so many times, why some barely competent, semi-literate university graduate working in Ottawa down the road here, why they get double the salary for doing very little work, I'm sorry to say, double the salary that a soldier gets for theoretically being, at a moment's notice, being called out to go and die somewhere for this country.
You can see there, Nick, like it keeps flashing. You want to check all those connectors because it is getting very kind of like troubling here. And then this is the troubling part of the housing units. She says they were to look at 45 buildings on these bases, and you can tell like the toilets weren't working, and there's structural damage to exterior walls, kind of conditions you and I wouldn't live in. Like these things are just awful. And they went to 45 different buildings. It's not like it was one building that was in trouble. And which cabinet minister of which cabinet is actually doing a good job? Like, I mean, this is another one. It'll be the connectors together where they connect together. Sorry about that, folks, but we were having some trouble with the monitors here. And you know what? It's just approximately 25% of the existing infrastructure is greater than 50 years old and requires significant maintenance, repair, and recapitalization to ensure it remains serviceable and compliant with health, safety, and environment regulations. But where is McGuinty on all this stuff? Where is he? Like it's like it's a surprise to him.
Well, he said we're working actively to improve all of that. Well, that's what he says.
How did it get so bad? Like where the toilets are working and nobody seems to know, just like, oh, this is a surprise. The auditors have to tell you that it's so bad that the toilets aren't working.
I think it's because what I said, because this is another world that affects other people. This is another class of people. and it's of no material concern to the likes of the Auditor General and that class of people in Ottawa and
I
Toronto
would
and
just
Montreal.
unplug it from the computer and then plug it back in.
The
Sorry,
military is
I'm
something
trying to
that
do. Yeah.
other people do. It's like they're talking about it in a very similar way that they would talk about people in other countries, in sort of like in the Middle East or Africa experiencing drought and famine. And it's kind of they're talking about it like that. That these are just strange foreign people, and you should give to charity and be a nice, be a good citizen, that kind of thing. It's absurd. And now and then I do like to bring up Plato and Aristotle and things like that, and like go back thousands of years. But thousands of years they knew this. The Roman Empire, the Roman Republic, more like the Roman Republic is another example, where there was, philosophers and people have thought about what makes a society healthy. They almost all of them believed that if you're going to have a military attached to your state, which all states do, then it should be composed of the citizenry, and that means everyone. That means the rich people, the highly educated people, and also the poorer people and the less educated people. It should be a whole society effort, and it should be something that binds everybody together. And when I look at the Canadian military, I can't say I see that. I just see it's just a very small group of people that aren't really recognized. They're not part of the elite and the main political system. They're just kind of like other people.
Yeah, like the military is the second largest landlord for Canada, and here we have this 25% of the existing infrastructure greater than 50 years old. I think I already said that, but it's just that we're sending money overseas. We're sending millions. We talk about it on the show all the time. We're sending millions and billions of dollars overseas, and we're not even looking after our own military. Like, we have aging jets. What do we have? We have 40-year-old jets. We have diesel subs. I think only 2 are working, I believe. 2 are working, and they're diesel. And we bought them in a UK garage sale, 30 years ago? And Australia just got a nuclear sub. I have friends that work in the military. It's not good, but not even good, safe drinking water. This is the Trudeau legacy. Well, basically a Liberal legacy. How many First Nations are unsafe drinking water? This is the basic things that you would expect. Yet, the D&D, we did that story back in December, where they were supposed to come in the office 3 days a week. They weren't even doing that. So they're doing well with their 100,000, what is an average, $136,000 a year salary? Well, these guys are basically working for minimum wage. You don't even provide them clean drinking water or toilets that work. This is an absolute shame. And how this McGuinty guy hangs on to his job as a cabinet minister, how the Liberals hang on in an election, like this is just what you would call neglect for 10 years. Just absolute neglect of the Canadian military.
And it's treated as though it's optional, isn't it? That's the other thing about the military. It's treated as almost like a luxury. It's kind of like, if there's any spare money after we've donated $500 million to the West Bank or something like that, then maybe we can get them a few sleeping bags. It's like added on top. It's very much a kind of an optional expenditure for these people. This
should be the scandal story of all media outlets should be covering it. But let's just look at our friends at the CBC there. What do they have on the above the fold there? Conservatives MPs doubt Poilievre's leadership. Second story, Poilievre said Trudeau broke law. Third story, Poilievre calls out RCMP. Fourth story, Liberals press Poilievre to apologize. Fifth story, Poilievre blasts RCMP. Where's the story?
I watched David Cochrane yesterday.
Where's the story, CBC? Where?
Cochrane is usually the better one, I thought, but I watched him yesterday, and it was just all in on Pierre Poilievre. And it was just kind of like very much the Liberal Party's line on everything.
These are just attack dogs for the Liberal Party. Well, let's see if our friends at the CTV are any better. Breaking news, Carney to meet with Poilievre to discuss budget. Toyota, Tesla announced recalls. Where's the story on this? This is absolute neglect of the Canadian military.
Mate, you're missing some huge news on CTV there.
What's that?
About the New York subway, a child that's gone missing in the New York subway or something like that.
But I mean,
remarkable.
Where's this? Under-equipped, underfunded, underpaid, and now housing not fit to live in. And an embarrassment.
But have you seen
an absolute
he was asked
embarrassment.
yesterday, I find it remarkable, he was asked by a reporter, would you live in military housing? He responded saying, we're working to improve all of that. So ignored the question. And then he was asked, how do you feel hearing what the Auditor General says about places that don't have working toilets? His response was, for decades now, governments successively have not been making the investments we need to make in our armed forces. We are doing that. So again, it's just
10
like,
years
oh,
later,
you know,
10
someone else
years,
screwed it up. We'll fix it.
Hey, you couldn't get a toilet to work in 10 years? Is it that bad? No plumbers?
I think that, you know, even if he is being genuine here, and if the Liberal Party is being genuine in its apparent conversion to the idea that Canada needs to have a military, a decent military, or one at all, that might be sincere, that might be genuine. But when you're asked questions like this, or when things like this show up, you know, it's incumbent upon you as the government and as the party that's been in government for a decade to kind of say, look, we're sorry, we really screwed this up. And we can blame Stephen Harper, we can blame whoever we want, but you know, the buck stops with us, and we're sorry. Why did they never speak like that? I just feel like at least then you might be able to respect them.
He should lose his job right now. I mean, there's no way that he should survive this, that this type of state of disrepair. And it's not like it was brought forward. The auditor has to bring it forward. Why didn't he say it? If it was such a problem, why wasn't he telling people about it? Why wasn't he saying, hey, look at the state of the military here. We got to put some money into it. He didn't say nothing.
Well, he was saying, yeah, I know all about it. Yeah, it's true. So why didn't you say anything?
Neglect. That's like most things. And this one's from the Western Standard. I was trying to source it, but manufacturers launched billboard campaign blaming Ottawa for Canada's economic woes. We've been saying that for a long time. They strawmanned. We had Jonathan Kahan yesterday, and you know, he laid it out pretty good. You can go watch that interview. But manufacturers launched billboard campaign blaming Ottawa for Canada's economic woes. Yeah, and we've been saying it forever here. It's 10 years of liberal policies that got us here. 10 years that put us at the mercy of the United States. 10 years of liberal policy. And the media, again, if you go to CBC and CTV, there ain't no stories there. Maybe Taylor Swift they'll cover today. Maybe they'll cover a Taylor Swift story.
But as is often the case, you can absolutely guarantee that the CBC will apply every scrap of scrutiny that they can find to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. Yeah. And that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a Liberal and you listen to this and then you're thinking that some like that where we support the Conservative Party or something like that. It's not like that. It's just not the job of the media to scrutinize the leader of the opposition to a greater extent than they scrutinize the government. It's just absurd. The level of scrutiny that you should apply to the opposition should be, I mean, at least half of what you apply to the government. Just because it's not worth it. They don't have power. Pierre Poilievre is not in power. He's just an MP. He wants to be in power.
And here you go. And here's the Financial Post, too. This is starting to come out. We've been saying it for quite a while. Gap between Canada and the United States, the economy is widening, and Trump's not only to blame. Imagine that. like you know, same as EB here in British Columbia, blaming Trump for forestry. Forestry has been in shambles for 10 years in British Columbia. All of a sudden, they got a straw man to blame.
I mean, you can attempt to blame it all on Trump if you want, and it might succeed with a certain segment of the population. But there are some of us that can remember what life was like before Trump was re-elected president of the United States. And the discussion in the likes of the Financial Post or Bloomberg or the Financial Times or whatever, in the Globe and Mail, the discussion was all about Canada's productivity losses and how Canada's GDP per capita had slipped away from the United States. This had all happened long before Trump was re-elected, and actually long before, or not long before, but before he was even elected the first time.
It's I watched a little piece from the Toronto Star this morning. They must be watching our show too, because they finally picked up on what we were saying way back to the election. The giant sucking sound that is going on in Canada, and that giant sucking sound is capital fleeing, including Mark Carney and the Brookfield leaving for the United States, including, you know, our own pension funds, people are leaving Canada because there's lack of certainty, bad policy, high taxation, and the same thing goes for the BC NDP. Even though I interviewed the finance minister, and she said that, you know, the BC is very competitive, and I'm just like, well, you're not convincing very many people of it. Here's Rupa Subramania. I don't think I'm going to say her name. She's a journalist that works for, I think she writes for the National Post and a couple other publications. She's always seems to be an independent thinker, an independent voice, and she's got something to say here. Let's listen to a little clip from Rupa here.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me to argue in favor of the motion. Thank you all for being here as well. I look forward to a robust and engaging debate with Lawrence. It's also great to return to Alberta and Calgary in particular, where last night I had my first real bourbon in months because Doug Ford in Ontario believes that he decides what we should drink and when we should drink. So it's nice to breathe some libertarian air here in Alberta. My case is very straightforward. If you're under 30, ambitious, hardworking, and want to succeed at the highest level, you will find greater opportunities in the United States than in Canada. Here's why. The numbers tell the story. When I came to Canada nearly 30 years ago, Canada's per capita GDP, adjusted for exchange rates and cost of living, was 85 to 90% of the US level. Today, the average Canadian makes just over 70% of what the average American makes. This is not progress, it's decline. The root cause of Canada's economic decline is poor productivity growth. Since about 2000 or so, Canada has averaged just around 0.8% productivity growth, and it's actually been zero in recent quarters. The US, by contrast, has averaged closer to 2% or more, widening this output gap, and therefore the gap in living standards between the two countries. And then you add record levels of immigration, that too, low-skilled immigrants to a stagnant economy, and you're slicing the same pie into thinner pieces. The consequences for young people, that's why we are here, are stark. In Canada, under 34s make about 41,000 US dollars. In the US, that's nearly 60,000 US dollars. That's more than just a pay gap. That's a border tax on ambition. A young Canadian earning 60,000 US dollars hands over close to a third of their pay in taxes. In the US, that same worker keeps more, about 7 cents to the dollar on the dollar or more. That gap is the difference between saving for a house and giving up on one. Speaking of housing, for Canadians under 34, they don't dream of white picket fences. They dream of rent control. At least in the US, a young couple can actually buy a house before they need a hip replacement.
That's good.
And US...
You can go listen to the full thing from Rupa there. But we've been saying all this stuff all along as well. Like, you know, we have to just start being honest with Canadians and start being honest with ourselves. And again, you go look at CBC and CTV. None of these stories get reported, right? These are not outlets. They take our tax dollars. These are not outlets talking in the best interests of Canadians. These are shills for the Liberal Party to keep them in power. I mean, look at the nonsense that's on there, and look at what's going on. We can show you chart after chart after chart. Again, if you go to CBC, how many times have we been doing this? For the last 3 weeks, we pull up the CBC website and we pull up CTV. And what do they show on there? Nonsense. None of this stuff, right?
But they also, I mean, they have editorial standards. You can go on their website and they say all these nice things about how they behave as journalists. And part of that, I mean, the central part of being a journalist is to represent both sides or all sides in an argument. And they routinely fail to do that. That's just the most basic action for a journalist to undertake. And they fail to do it so often. I mean, just this morning, I listened to a radio broadcast. They were talking about the White House and, you know, how apparently Trump's destroying the White House. And it started off very, very biased. And they kept going on and on about all the negatives. And then for a counter argument, they played like a 5-second clip of Donald Trump saying something ridiculous, like, it's going to be the best of it, it's going to be the greatest. It's kind of like, that's not sufficient. You can't do that. You can't just play sort of 90% negative coverage and then Donald Trump saying something incoherent, and that's the counter argument. So often I see them do this. I mean, there are times where, like that story that we highlighted last week about, I think it's Prince George, isn't it, where they're going to trial different justice based on your ethnicity. They wrote that story and they didn't include a single opposition voice. So if you read that story as a good Canadian citizen, you would think that it was just completely agreed to by everybody, that there was no opposition to it whatsoever.
I mean, again, if you go to the CBC website right now, if you're watching with us, go there yourself. They've dedicated when you talk about above the fold, because that's where a lot of people go, above the fold, they've dedicated 80% of that real estate to attacks on Pierre Poilievre. It's basically attacking Pierre Poilievre to making sure if an election comes that is branded into the people that drink from this CBC spout here, that you're all in on how you need to give Mark Carney more time.
They're trying to tap into this idea that there's momentum now to get rid of Poilievre. And also just look at the photograph. You know, you're a pictures man.
Yeah.
But everybody in journalism knows you pick the picture, you pick it yourself.
Yeah.
And you make a decision. And when you choose a picture like that, which is Pierre Poilievre looking like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, you've done that for a reason, because you don't like him. You want him to look malevolent.
And then let's turn from another mess to another mess, the actual car wreck that's happening here. And listen to Jolie here, because this is after GM says it's ending production of the EV vans that they can't sell, that they got tons of taxpayer dollars to do, and now they can't sell it. Listen into what Jolie has to say.
It's obviously tough news this morning for the workers in Ingersoll for GM. I had a conversation with the Canadian CEO of GM this morning. I had a conversation with the head of Unifor, who represents the employees, and a conversation with Doug Ford and Vic Fideli, his Minister of Economic Development. So we've decided altogether that we would be creating a new response group, because we need to make sure that we fight for these jobs, that there are new models coming back to Ingersoll, and that GM has a bright future here in Canada. So it's obviously tough.
You know, she just brags about the meetings she has. Like, meetings don't do anything. And we're going to see this clip again. Meetings don't do anything. Like, get rid of the EV mandate. We said this for like 8 months. Get rid of the EV mandate. This push that you went on, you were wrong. You were wrong again. And here you're wrong again. And it is just, she's the leader for the industry. Again, when McGuinty and her should walk hand in hand out the door.
Yeah, well, I mean, that conversation we had with Jonathan Kay yesterday, which I will plug again, is well worth listening to. He's an extremely erudite man with a lot of experience. You know, helped ghostwrite Justin Trudeau's memoir. Like, he's very much a part of that world and knows, knows all about that sort of thing. And we had a chat about a few people, didn't we? Chrystia Freeland came up, and he actually defended her, said that she was a lot more serious than people assume. But then Jolie also came up, and what was his reaction to that? He couldn't stop laughing. He couldn't hold in his
Jolie,
the sense of how ridiculous this woman is.
Like, these are clowns. These are absolute clowns. And here's this Trudeau back in what was it, 2022. We made investments in the plant in Ingersoll. Today we went back for the launch. It's officially Canada's full-scale commercial EV plant. They went all in on this EV stuff. I mean, I'm a big believer in EVs. I drive a Tesla for 2 years. Love it. They don't like Teslas, though. That's the only really commercially viable EV out there. And yet they went all in on these things that just aren't going to sell. And
but we're talking about GM. GM is hardly bursting with vitality as a company, is it? And yet that's like, these are the sort of companies that the federal government or the Liberal Party has chosen to back. It's hardly backing winners.
And then what's going on right now with the American automakers? Trump is luring them home. One, with a tariff up here, and two, with build your plants. We'll let you depreciate the capital investment in 1 year. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Depreciating the capital in 1 year, absolutely huge. We'll lower your taxation, absolutely huge, right? We'll cut regulation, we'll fast track you, absolutely huge. And what does Jolie say we're going to do? We're going to strike a committee. Well, God knows how many committees we need here in Canada. A working group. God knows. Is it her and Doug Ford going to pull whiskey down the drain or something, or light a Silverado on fire? What are you going to do?
I don't think she would let that stuff go down the drain, would she?
Yeah, there's a drain. She'll put it down all right. Let's listen in on Melanie and Pierre Poilievre. And again, go listen to Jonathan Kay. Again, what he said about Poilievre, the Poilievre he wants back. And Pierre, if your team's watching, take that advice. It's pretty good advice. Here you go. Let's listen to Jolie go against Poilievre here.
How the Prime Minister how he will deal with the auto sector. He will look at the auto workers in the eyes and he will say, we will fight for your jobs. And that's exactly what we're doing. Every single day, we're negotiating back in Washington, but also, this is important to say that I met this morning with the Canadian CEO of GM. I was in conversation with the head of the labor union of Unifor, and I also talked to Doug Ford, and I talked to Vic Fideli. And you know what? We're putting in place a response group. We will make sure that we fight for these jobs. We need to make sure that...
She announced just now that she talked to this person, and she talked to that person, and she talked to this other person, and she talked, and she talked, and they talk, and they talk, and nothing gets done, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are tired of talk. They want their jobs.
Minister of Industry. Fight for these jobs, and we will hold...
That's good. You know what he should have done is he should have got up with an apple, took a bite of the apple and said, show me the beef. What, all this, you think phone calls are going to help anything? Show me. Like you're talking, this is not unusual. Jolie does this all the time. She talks about how she talks to people. And, you know, she paid, what was it? I can't remember the number, like close to $100,000 to some Democrat to learn how to talk to Republicans.
Remarkable. At a great cost as well. Remarkable expense, wasn't it? That?
Yeah. And then here's our friend Doug Ford here. He's threatening to sue GM. Good luck, Doug. You talk tough all the time. Tough talking Doug. Let's listen in on what Doug has to say.
Was this a bad bet, do you think, on Ontario's part to put money into this General Motors facility? And how do you get that money back?
If they breach a contract, we're going to sue them. Simple as that.
Was this a bad bet, do you
That's
think,
good.
on Ontario's part?
As Doug just says, he's going to sue him.
Where do you go to acquire an accent like Doug Ford's? I find it remarkable. It's mesmerizing. It's like central to his political image, though, isn't it? It's like, we're going to sue him. he's a rich kid, isn't he? I believe. So is he putting that on? Is he putting that accent on? I know that's besides the point, but I'm just mystified.
Yeah, they went in all on this EV stuff, and and said there was no business case for LNG. Lo and behold, there is a business case for LNG because now they're rushing into LNG, and all these EV things is kind of like flamed out, basically. There's a list of them, right? Here's Bright Spot, Lion or Northvolt.
Lion,
okay,
yeah.
Should we go on? The Honda one that was supposed to go ahead now has been shelved, for a couple of years. And what's going to happen in a couple of years? They're going to kick it down the road again. Again, Honda makes a great engine. They're not really interested in making. Well, they haven't shown much interest in making EVs. None of them can make EVs profitable right now. Tesla's the only one in the world. And
also the only one that Canada absolutely despises on an official level. It's official patriotic policy. You must hate Tesla.
Apparently, Elon Musk, the most consequential person of this time frame, is the devil, I guess, to Doug Ford and to Jonathan Kay said he was flying here from Toronto. He's using the internet while he was flying here. So you shouldn't use it if you're anti-Elon Musk, because that's coming through Starlink. So keep that in mind. And here's the Immigration Department. Does not know. Here's another cabinet minister, has no idea. Doesn't know how many foreigners are in Canada illegally. Why would you want to know, right? That number could be as high as 500,000.
I reckon it could be even higher. But, nobody knows.
They're accessing health care. They're taking, the Canadians can't get a family doctor. But hey, Again, just another
Craziness, isn't it?
just another department out of control.
I mean, in part, this is because when people are deported, it's just an entirely civil matter, isn't it? It's like a letter is sent to your address or something saying, like, please leave Canada. We're not going to track you or anything like that. We're not going to like make sure you leave, but we're just going to say, please
How about
go.
this one? How many people with removal orders in Canada have been convicted of a crime? The answer? I don't have that number readily handy. Like, okay, like what number do you have? What number do you have? What number do you have?
This is the thing, though. I mean, in England, that benighted land that I know so much about, the most reliable, among certain cynical persons such as myself, the most reliable source for the true population of the country, in other words, the extent of illegal immigration, is to look at the reports by supermarkets, like grocery stores, and they estimate the country's population based on how many chickens they sell or whatever it is, how many products they sell. And in Britain, not so long ago, they got it. I think they did a better job. I can't remember what it was, like 10 or 15 years ago now, it came out, and they did a better job than the like Statistics Canada equivalent, because that is just based on pure guesswork. They don't have any sort of formal system in place to actually figure out how many people live in the country, and it's precisely the same here.
Do you as a Canadian think you should know this number? And do you as a Canadian go look on CBC that you give $1.55 billion a year to? Do you think they would do a story on this? No. They're doing stories and attacking Poilievre for, like having his MPs ask these questions. Like, here's the question again. Why are you adding several 100,000 people more to the system when youth unemployment is at 14.7% and we have unprecedented hospital wait times? And the answer? We're looking at particular talents. We need those people to fill, who fill these labor shortage gaps. What? Where? Like, again, these policies are for the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. So some corporations get cheap labor at the expense of the population. The population pays for it in skyrocketing rents, no access to health care, inflation and everything. You know what I mean? And the question again, response, why aren't you betting on Canadians? Well, we focus our attention, first of all, on those who are in the domestic workforce. Like, you can't even make this up. Again, another guy that knows nothing about how is he the cabinet minister when he knows nothing, doesn't know the numbers? Accountability and transparency, non-existent.
That's also a very telling phrase, isn't it? He was asked, the question that he was asked was, why aren't you betting on Canadians? That has a very precise meaning. And his response was, domestic workforce. That's who we're thinking about. Domestic workforce, of course, includes lots of people who are in Canada illegally, who don't even have papers of any kind.
Yeah. So they pick their end. They're just playing games, absolutely playing games. And here's this one here now. Here's our friend Gary, the public safety minister, that still somehow has his job, somehow is still a cabinet minister. Like, blow me away. This guy that, was talking to his tenant there saying that, he'll take care of that leaked memo, which, in a Harper government, that guy would have been gone in minutes, right? The media would never even be let up on him. But again, if we go CBC and CTV, nope. They're just attacking Poilievre. And he says now cabinet prepared to rewrite that security bill critics call a threat to civil liberties. He acknowledged shortcomings in Bill C2. Well, you should have acknowledged them. Why did you put it out? We realize the consensus on what lawful access is not captured right now in C2. And the minister said he talked to some civil rights experts and would amend the bill. Why do they just continue looking? And I interviewed John Carpe yesterday, the Justice Minister, from the Justice Center of Constitutional Freedoms. You got to go watch that because he talks about Bill C2 and how much that they've left in there. Just what we have in Canada, and I did an interview with Lisa Bildy too, is in the United States they have their First Amendment, which is basically freedom of speech. And what we do in Canada here is we get all their culture wars, but we don't have that. We have a charter that they continue to kind of like compress your rights there because it's, subject to interpretation. It's not very clear what those rights are. Those rights are limited. And then who's limiting them? The Liberals continue to write bills to limit your rights. Instead of writing ways to expand your rights, they're writing limits continually. Like if you look at all these bills, every one of them is another limitation, another limitation. The Online News Act, Bill C-18, is basically a censorship law for us.
No, it's certainly been called that, yeah. And quite a lot of people have used that word to describe it, yeah, and I think it's fair to do that. But it's all, the US, their rights are unconditional, aren't they?
Yeah,
that's the big
that's
difference.
what I mean.
There are no conditions attached whatsoever.
Again, if you
it's
look,
just you have it and it's yours. As long as you're a citizen, there you go. Whereas in Canada, it's always kind of like, maybe if you do this and then you do that, then you'll be able, in certain circumstances, subject to the interpretation of it's like.
And depending
okay.
on,
So it
and
doesn't
depending on
exist
who,
then, really.
And depending on who you are, you may get some special rights.
Yep, and this is the glory of the US Constitution. As much as people like to complain about how maybe it's out of date in certain ways and whatnot, I mean, it has so much power. It is such a sort of glorious instrument when you look at it and compare it to other systems around the world.
Where was our Thomas Jefferson? I don't know. Didn't show up, I guess.
Well, he kind of was ours. He was part of that English world, but he made his own country, and we weren't invited. Actually, Canada certainly was invited, but at the point of a gun, and said no, thank you.
There you go. Check this out. You know that Montreal, that riding there that was 1-by-1 vote, and then had that mail-in ballot that would have swung the balance there and made it a runoff. This Liberal MP who won the riding says that it would be unreasonable to annul the result in order a new vote. Imagine that. They're asking her, and this is who the government-funded media puts out there. Oh, it's unreasonable to cancel that election won by a single vote. They shouldn't even be put up for debate. It should be just like, no, we need to redo this one. This was a mistake done by Elections Canada, and you've won this election by a mistake done by Elections Canada.
And if you read the argument of the lawyer that she's instructed to defend her, it continues, and it's apparently if a new election were to be called, that would effectively deny the right to vote for more than 60,000 people who voted for her. Obviously, just about exactly the same number, if not more, voted for the other person. But I guess their votes can be denied. That's fine. And then the lawyer goes on as well. It's actually quite an amusing defense. I think this, I'm not a lawyer, but I think this is a very stupid defense that he's cobbled together. But he goes on to say, oh yes, some people who voted in that election are dead now. So it's not fair. It's just kind of, how desperate is that? Like, what are you talking about?
But look at the framing of it, though. Look how the media's framed it. Look at how it's framed. Unreasonable to cancel election won by single vote. Lawyer for Liberal MP says. Where's like this, you know what I mean? Where does it say, this election should be rerun? Because it's just, Elections Canada made a mistake. They said they made a mistake. They owe it up to
this is the defense. This is the defense position. So they're reporting on a court hearing. And then there'll be the Bloc Québécois thing. But yeah, I mean, they've maybe not quite considered the context sufficiently here at Global. Although this is Canadian press, isn't it? So
yeah, they just regurgitate it. They just regurgitate it. And here it is, a couple years later, after Guilbeault stood at the podium how many times and said climate change caused the fire at Jasper. Now all of a sudden, these reports come out and say, whoops, right? Another 2 reports on last year's catastrophic wildfire have been released, and both of them confirm the fire was caused by lightning. One of the reports also pointed out that an area south of town had not been cleared away or burned in more than a century, providing a nearly unbroken corridor for fire spread. No mitigation. And it was warned about and warned about and warned about. And then all it did was the Guilbeault stand at the podium talking about how we need to act faster on climate change. This is what they use. They use these natural disasters to sell climate grift, a reason to tax
Not
you.
just that, but to spread and encourage what we were talking about yesterday, this climate anxiety that some poor buggers out there suffering from, some hopeless people suffering from this climate anxiety, which that is affecting their day-to-day life. Because yes, they are being told by people like Stephen Guilbeault, if we don't bring in an EV mandate, then expect another Jasper. I mean, they were using that phrase, weren't they?
Yeah.
Another Jasper or another Lytton. I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
They're trying to connect two things together that really don't belong in
And
the
what
same
was the Lytton
sentence.
fire caused by again? Wait for it.
The cappers.
The RCMP inadvertently started that fire.
The RCMP driving all those internal combustion engine cars and polluting the atmosphere.
The climate deniers were doing it. There you go.
But yeah, it's just astonishing, and it has to stop. They have to be called out. Talking about CBC and Global and CTV, they've got to start getting into the habit of preventing people like that from getting away with it. So when Guilbeault tries to link some policy like the carbon tax or something like that in Canada, when he tries to link that to Jasper, even before we knew it was lightning anyway, or before we knew all this about it, journalists need to say, no, I'm not going to let you get away with this. Canada is not contributing that much to CO2 emissions. You can't blame this on Canada.
And then just the mitigation part. I mean, the same thing that's going on in Nova Scotia this year. They started talking about climate change, and then the wildfire fighters came out and said, no. Again, it's just neglect, no mitigation. You've been warned about this time and time again. And they just stand up there and they use these things to further their agenda. And here's
that's another
agenda.
thing that's almost become like, it's not allowed. You're not allowed to talk about that. That's almost become like back in the worst days of COVID, where you couldn't ask the most basic questions about anything. And there was this kind of weird block on discussion of all these things. It's the same with wildfire management. Like, even if you bring that up, it's like eyes will be sort of cast at you, People will kind of look down on you for stating the most obvious thing. And then you read BBC or something in England or some US report like CNN, and they go on about management all the time because they realize how important that is. But in Canada, that's almost like, no, you're trying to minimize the effects of climate change, and we don't like that. And
here's our friend Stephen Guilbeault now. He's now the Heritage Minister, not the Environment Minister, and now he's shilling for the CBC. Let's listen to what he has to say about the CBC.
What do you think of the CBC's 5-year plan?
I think there's lots of really good elements in this plan. I really like the fact that the public broadcaster wants to invest more in local news across the country. You saw some of that. Certainly, we think that more, if we can, as you know, we committed to invest more in the public broadcaster, and we believe that those additional resources will help them make sure that Canadians have access to more information, non-biased information, and more local news across the country.
And to be clear, that'll be in the budget, that promised funding.
I'm not the finance minister. I don't know what's going to be in the budget.
That's good. Unbiased. Let's go back to the CBC website right now. Unbiased. Basically, 90%, 80% of the stories are attacking Pierre Poilievre. When we talked about all these other stories that should be on there, if you watch this show on a regular basis, you're going to have a completely different perspective than if you go and read CBC every day. And CBC, and also, it's angry. Get angry at Poilievre all the time. Get angry at Trump. Get angry at like the right is the devil. Meanwhile, don't even look under the covers of all the money that is being filtered into other parts of the world where our military, like if you have any pride left in Canada, underfunded, under-equipped, underpaid, and now in housing that's unfit to live in.
But also on this idea that CBC is not biased, again, I refer you to that interview that we did with Jonathan Kay yesterday. Jonathan Kay has been working in the Canadian media longer than many people have been alive. He helped create the National Post. He's worked for so many. He's done loads of work with the CBC. Appeared on their shows loads of times. Listen to what he has to say about CBC. In essence, what he says, it's something I've kind of referred to in the past. It's like the idea that the CBC is just so biased because of its staff that it doesn't even realize that it's biased. Yeah. That which is an extraordinary level of bias when you think about it. They don't even realize that there's an alternative view because they are so deep in their biases.
Yeah. And then for all the people that attack us for just highlighting some of this stuff, like you couldn't defend any of these things. Like again, here's another one. This is from Holly Jones at Blacklocks. Again, this one likely it's not going to appear on CBC. Yesterday, this is Senate Liberal appointee Andrew Cardoza challenged CBC management yesterday to justify their anti-conservative bias by some newsroom employees. Network executives testifying at the Senate Transport and Communications Committee denied political score settling under the pretext of fact-checking. As a strong supporter of the CBC, I would say, by and large, reporters are very unbiased. There are 2 or 3 people who do not fact-check, who do fact-check opposition members more than they do government members consistently and quite aggressively. Either you fact-check everybody or you don't fact-check anybody. Anyway, there's lots of complaints about CBC. The CBC needs to attend to complaints of bias on an ongoing basis by having an external party conducting an annual review and publicly report on this. One of the things the CBC it refuses to do is be accountable and transparent. We talked about that yesterday with the GEM stuff. Like they won't report. They won't give you the numbers. Like why wouldn't they they're a public broadcaster taking public money. And they talk about it in that report there. I watched the whole thing. They talk about it in their report, this 5-year plan. Their 5-year plan, right at the top says accountability and transparency. Asked a couple of basic things. No.
I also love this, the editor-in-chief, so the guy that actually controls CBC, Brody Fenlon, he was also asked, and he said, bias, ? You know, I've worked for a number of different news organizations, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, something about the CBC's, there you go, held
Most
to the
accountable.
highest standard of any organization I've ever worked for. It's just...
Yeah.
I don't know, and what can you do for people like that? I mean, he even sounds quite reasonable because he says here, where do we need to course correct? Says we talk about bias all the time. So he sounds like he's actually a genuine chap, or at least in this committee,
well, he thinks
he was being
anyway.
sincere.
Yeah.
But come on, you're asking a question. You've literally, there is a quote attributed to you that says bias ? And you're the head of the CBC's of news at the CBC. Come on.
Well, let's listen in on what
this is not realistic. It's not reasonable.
Well, let's listen to what Travis has to say. He was the young man that wanted to interview Pierre Poilievre, and said they told him no, and then he quit, resigned, got fired. I think he's still on payroll. Like he doesn't even know himself. He says, "I'm not sure what's going on." But let's listen to what he has to say.
And I think fundamentally, the executives that are listening to this, the folks that are in the boardroom right now, figuring out whether or not they're going to sue Can't Be Censored and Travis Stanraj, or what statement they're going to put out when the media asks about this. They need to stop concentrating on that and recognize that there is a problem, that there are Canadians, a large proportion of Canadians, losing trust in this institution. And until you recognize that there is a problem, you cannot start to deal with it. And really, they really have to deal with this.
Yeah, trendsetter.
That's good.
Whoa.
That's good. But he said I hear the new president at the committee here yesterday was asked if she had personally looked into the issues that he raised in the resignation letter. She said she didn't. You would think that would be that was a big story. Again, she makes close to $600,000 a year.
God knows what it comes to at the end of the year. Yeah. She
won't share the GEM numbers for some because it's a trade secret. But Crave shares theirs. That's Bell Media. They share their numbers, but CBC won't share theirs. And then she hasn't looked into this. You think this would be just like, wow, we have this guy making all these accusations about the CBC.
The thing is, the biggest thing is she won't admit bias. Like as we just saw there, she won't admit the obvious, and that is just a profound insult, and that makes people looking on just despair and think that there's no chance. There is no chance of any correction.
We watched the head of I think it was the PBS in the States, when they got their funding cut, when she said in one of her speeches when everything was going great, when they're out of less funding, she said sometimes you can't tell people the truth. You need to tell them what's important, not the truth. And she thought that was okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that Jonathan Kay said about the staff as well, that's just so true and so accurate. Just think about a left-wing outlet, or like a progressive outlet, like the TIE or something, which is one of the more extreme progressive rags. Just look at that and just look at their staff, look at the way they speak and write and the things that they think about and write about. And then just think, could that person work for CBC? I think in most cases, your answer is going to be yes, definitely. They're almost interchangeable with CBC staff. And then look at the other end of the spectrum, like Juno or whatever, like the Toronto Sun or something like that. Are they also interchangeable, do you think, with CBC staff? Could you imagine like CBC coming in headhunting Brian Lilly? Do you think that's going to happen?
Or do you think they would give us a show? Do you think they would give you and I a show?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put us on the extreme end of the spectrum, but that is even more damning of them, isn't it?
Yeah,
that they would look at us and think that we were insane.
Yeah, because we were actually just telling you stuff that's actually happening in these committee hearings. And here's another one. The Clark condo probe prompts probe. And yesterday asked Cabinet to undertake a sweeping investigation of the costly real estate holdings by the Department of Foreign Affairs. Tons of money for this, no money for toilets for the military, though. But listen to look at the juxtaposition on this. This follows a purchase of an $8.8 million Manhattan penthouse for Tom Clark, Canada's $232,000 a year consul in New York. He seems to be doing okay, $8.8 million, and no toilets, no running toilets for Canadian military. Again, if you're a liberal and you're listening to this, like, pick up the phone. A manager should obtain and table a committee with at least 2 independent third-party appraisals, $8.8 million. And then there's more of these. It's just not that one house, though, right? And, their excuse is that, you got to have it as appearance of influence. I thought you go to meetings. I thought you go to places to meet. You're bringing them to your house? Like, what is this? The purchase and sale report yesterday was inconclusive. Critics earlier called Clark a liar. Tom Clark lied, and they go on and on and on. I don't know. $8.8 million for a consul member there in the United States. $8.8 million Manhattan penthouse. They just. Where does this fit? Where does this fit? Waste, fraud, or abuse? Where does it fit? And then if you compare it again to the Canadian military, who most of their properties are uninhabitable, underfunded, underequipped, underpaid, and then living in housing not fit for habitation. Would this guy go live in a military house? Maybe he should go spend a couple weeks there without a running toilet and see where money is best spent, because that $8.8 million might have fixed a few toilets.
Yeah, but it's like old Abe Lincoln said, honest Abe, about a democracy being government of, by, and for the people.
So listen to this.
If you apply that to us here, yeah. Who's it for? Who's it of? And who's it by in this country? It's people like this, and that's why the military gets, the poopy end of the stick, and the people that actually run the thing get nice penthouses in Manhattan.
So this penthouse featured a marble bathroom, nice, quartzite flooring, granite countertops, and a $4,600 Gaggenau coffee maker. And $15,213 in monthly condo fees and taxes. $15,000. Like, okay, Canadians, you're listening, you're watching. $15,000 just for the strata fees. Just for the strata fees. How many people can we house with that? Like this guy here, $8.8 million thing. And our Canadian, which would you rather choose? Would you rather fix the toilet and the plumbing for our Canadian military that you send off to war? You want to send them to Gaza, you want to send them to Ukraine, you want to send them everywhere. And you're asking them to kill strangers. This guy is not being asked to kill anybody. He's asked to wine and dine people.
But also, if you're a young chap or chapette, you're starting out in life very ambitious. What are you going to aim for? You're going to aim for being a soldier in the Canadian military, or are you going to aim for being, what's he, consul in New York City? What are you going to aim for? Obviously, it's this. And so you end up having this system where all the sort of, a lot of ambitious people end up on that side, and the military it's just forgotten, and it's just for other people. It's such a foolish way to operate. And I would say a positive thing about countries here now that have conscription still. I really that's probably going to freak a lot of people out, but I just feel like in countries where they do that, like Finland and Israel, I think Switzerland, they still do it. There's a very different attitude to the military. It has so much more respect and dignity and prestige. It's so much more central to national life. And I think that is a much more reasonable and just way
We've
to approach that.
We've asked Stephen Fuhr for interviews. I've personally even pleaded with him for an interview, and he won't even answer my emails. Why don't you come in, Stephen Fuhr, and explain to us, explain to Canadians why we can't get plumbing for our military and toilets that work, and yet and unsafe drinking water, and yet we can come up with $8.8 million for this guy's condo, and then he needs. And he could have lived in the house that people have been living in since 1961, but it didn't fit his lifestyle. Explain it to us. Explain why we need to pay $15,000 a month in condo fees, and he needs a. How much was that coffee maker again? What did I say that coffee maker was? $4,600 for a coffee maker.
Insane.
I thought Canadians are supposed to drink Tim's, so isn't that the deal? Apparently not him.
Supposedly that's the patriotic thing to do, isn't it?
So come on in, Stephen. Let's talk. Explain it to us. Explain why the Canadian military is underfunded, under-equipped, underpaid, and now doesn't even have housing fit to live in. And then, without blaming Stephen Harper, you've had 10 years. Your party's had 10 years, and you were part of it once. Like, he was part of it, right? He had that position for a while as well. So explain it. And, I'm sure you've got a good excuse.
You know, he's a veteran as well, and a lot is made of that. So he knows about the military in a way that most people obviously don't.
Well, here we go. Here's CTV, ready to go. A global warming pushing the planet to the brink. And this is from the UN Secretary General. And this is around the same time as, guess what? They're trying to float this new global carbon tax on shipping that could double overseas freight. This is, like we talked about that the other day. Imagine that all these stories start to come out, all this like, get ready for the end of the world. But here's the solution, taxation. And Trump put out these outrages that, you can read it yourself. But Marco Rubio put out a tweet, and they made a few phone calls, and it got voted down.
Global green new scam tax on shipping.
But Canada silently signed on, though. They were just like, yep. And imagine that, Mark Carney, I am the same me. Remember that quote there when he had that interview with Bloomberg? He said, I am the same me, values. Go read Values, and you will understand who Mark Carney is. He says all those things in that book. He is the same me. There you go.
Easily obtained at your local thrift store. I see it on the shelf a lot, alongside Justin Trudeau's, not just Justin Trudeau's memoirs, but also his mother's memoirs. They're always there.
And here's the other thing, that we have all this illegal immigration, record immigration, and what's coming is, for young people, is a lot of job loss. We've seen that with Scotiabank, just laid off a bunch, right? Remember? We just talked about that a little while ago. They laid off a bunch, even though they had some, profits were like, I don't know, was it 50% higher than they were the previous year? Lots of profits, yet still laying off. But here, and we've reached out for an interview on this as well. So almost half of employed job seekers say that fear their job will be eliminated due to AI, right? And then employers are thinking they got to embrace AI or they're going to fall behind. So this is kind of like a really scary thing, right? So lots of worry, and especially for young people, these entry-level jobs are the ones that AI will probably remove first. So, I mean, it's going to be, we have high unemployment for youth right now. AI is going to add to it. So they got to really fix this immigration problem.
Yeah, because as you've said, and many other people have said, AI is not necessarily going to take everybody's job. It's just going to get rid of it's going to remove certain people, and then we'll have people in control of AI. You're still going to need people to direct AI. And that's going to be people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It's not going to be the young'uns, is it, by and large? So it's kind of, it's dire for them.
And AI is huge, because Norway has a sovereign wealth fund. That's the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, by the way. And guess how they got that sovereign wealth fund? Was it from climate change? No.
Wasn't it from selling hydrogen?
Yes, it could have been hydrogen or wind.
Oh, wind. Yeah, wind. That's what it was.
No. It was oil and gas. Imagine that. They've got $2 trillion in their bank account, about $300,000 per capita. Canada could have that, but no. Liberal policies. And go back to the stories, not on CBC, right? But they're going to use AI because they want to make sure that that they are. I mean, this is going to go after the finance industry for sure, right? AIs. I mean, I run scenarios, and I still have a lot of interest in the resource sector. I was a mine site controller, and I actually put in this company that I'm following. I put in their drill results, put all the stuff in, and I said, access the website. Tell me how this, what they, like the success ratio of this property is, and man. And then I ran it through a few friends of mine, geologists and mining guys, and they're just like, holy cow. They couldn't believe what it spit out, like what an analyst would do, right? Like it just blows your mind, right? And that's what Norway, the Sovereign Wealth Fund is doing. They're starting to use AI to make sure they make decisions. But we do want to plug this one more time. This was a good get. Ian got this interview. It was Jonathan Kay. He was actually here speaking in Kelowna here for UBCO flew him out here. And he Nick went, and so did. What did you think of it, Nick? Nick said it was great. So there you go. There's
who won? Did they have a winner at the end?
Yeah, was there a winner, Nick? No winner. We're
No
all
winner.
winners. We're all winners, and in this case, we may all be losers.
That's the UBCO attitude.
No winners. No winners, no losers. But this interview was about an hour and a half. There's so many good stories. We're going to probably put some stories together out of this. It's really good there. And really good, eh? A little Canadian.
But it's hard to understand.
Like,
he's media royalty, Jonathan Kay, really. I mean, he's a pretty humble dude, so he doesn't exactly carry himself like some glorious prince. But he has, if you love your resumes and you voted for Mark Carney because of his resume, then you'll like Jonathan Kay. But yeah, he's got a lot of experience.
Then I did an interview with John Carpe for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Another one. This one always does really well on our stuff. I think it's like the 4th or 5th time I've interviewed John Carpe, which is great. And he says Canada surrender sovereignty. And this is to do with Canada signed up. Again, they no parliamentary discussion, no nothing. Canada signed on to the WHO and said, if there's another pandemic, you can run our health system. Go ahead. And the United States said, nope. Germany said, nope. You can go listen to the countries that said no. And Canada's just like, sure you can. Canada signed up for that
Germany
UN.
says no, and you say yes, then you've got to ask yourself some serious questions, haven't you?
Hey, but why not put it up for parliamentary debate? Why not let the House vote on it?
I mean, the World Health Organization is a compromised entity. It's been proven again and again and again.
Yeah.
The Times newspaper in London did this massive expose during COVID that found that the current head of the WHO had been put there by China with Chinese money. It's there. You can still read the article.
Yeah.
These exposés have been done numerous times. And then there's the gigantic scandal of when Taiwan said, can we have some of this data, please? Or they said that they were going to share some of their data related to COVID. And they didn't even get a response because that would upset China, because China doesn't consider Taiwan a country, and therefore Taiwan can't be part of the WHO. I mean, it's such a disgraceful organization, the World Health Organization. To think that we would give them any kind of control over our society is just demented.
You got to go watch it. And you got to ask yourself, why wasn't this up for parliamentary debate? Why was it just signed secretly? And the other one, when Carney recognized Palestine, was that debated in Parliament?
Well, it was before Carney came in, wasn't it? And the Parliament
said voted
no.
down.
But then Carney thought, you know what? I'm just going to say yes on your behalf.
Yeah, voted down when prior, but Carney decided. They talk about Trump being a threat to democracy. Carney's making a lot of decisions on his own without any parliamentary debate at all. The same as this WHO one. The U.S. said no, Germany said no, and there's a list of I think there's a bunch of big countries that said no. But of course, Canada's into what Anita Nan said, multilateralism. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, called it, with the price of beef. Here we go. We got our first story coming out. RCMP investigating reports of cattle poaching in BC Interior. You knew that was going to happen.
Back to the cowboy days.
Well, I mean, beef is like a luxury that most people can't even think about affording right now.
Yeah.
In Canada, think about that in Canada. And then Patty had you there yesterday in Parliament saying, Canadians want that food program to stay. Canadians would want to be able the ability to make a living and feed their own kids. That's what Canadians would want.
Yep.
John Rustad here says forestry built British Columbia. NDP spends 8 years dismantling it. The allowable cuts has dropped by 2/3. And I've done so many stories on this. But again, David Eby strawmans Trump. How many stories have we done on forestry? We interviewed the forest minister. We interviewed Brendan Bailey back then, who was a jobs minister. We interviewed David Eby, and forestry was in shambles back then. And even Eby admitted to it that the permitting was not up to snuff and that they got to work on the problem. And they struck a committee, and what was the comment from industry when they struck that committee? A committee, Dick Jolie, we're going to make this group. It was full of environmentalists and not enough representation from industry. So, like industry's like, good one, right? Like, thanks. We're going to sit around a room and argue, not get anything done. And we're going to take years and years and years to put these things together. British Columbia and Canada needs decisive leaders.
Do you remember back in the day when you and Rustad had some very good conversations about forestry? And he really did seem to understand a lot about it.
He does understand. That's one thing Russ said. One of his big strengths is forestry, because he comes from an area up in northern BC that is built on forestry. He understands forestry very well. I think he also worked in that sector, didn't he? But it's just I'm just highlighting the fact that once upon a time he would have these conversations, and he was so passionate and enthusiastic about it, and seemed very genuine. And now he's disappeared off the face of the earth. Won't speak to anyone really, but least of all us, it seems. We'll come to John Rustad here in a bit here. But again, how many stories have we done on this? What's going on in our schools in British Columbia? For sure. A BC high school teacher, again, reprimanded and briefly suspended over several instances of inappropriate conduct and comments made towards students. How many of these do we do? According to the agreement, that included touching students' shoulders, giving side hugs, putting his face within anyway. The students
told the class what he's attracted to, which included silky long hair, short women, and big butts.
What is wrong? What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with the teaching profession? How many of these do we do? How many? And he getting a couple of weeks suspension.
And his name is Kane. Not good. Where's Abel? Where's Abel when you need him? Get him in the classroom.
Anyway, there was an op-ed written in, I think it was in the Western Standard, calling for Rustad's resignation. I mean, the calls for Rustad's resignation are getting louder and louder and louder and louder, and they're coming from all over the place too. And they say, if David Eby's got to be rubbing his hands together. I did the On the Ballot yesterday with Renee Merrifield. And again, if you go listen, that Jonathan Kay, there's a whole story in there. We got to do that story. He said people in Ontario are laughing at British Columbia. He said that. He said that BC is an absolute, whatever adjective you want, verb you want to put in there, whatever show it is. But he said BC is an absolute just mess. And he said he
kept saying it was weird, didn't he? He kept talking about the weirdness of British Columbia.
But he also said that likely what's going to happen is that you're going to get, because, Rustad kind of put together this, I don't know, kind of like a Frankenstein party. But he said you need somebody like Stephen Harper to come in and, like that picks up the fragments and puts together a cohesive, center-right party. And I talked to Renee Merrifield about it after, and I said, is there a Stephanie Harper or Stephen Harper in BC politics right now that could do the job of uniting the center-right?
And is there?
Well, she had one name that she said could be Stephanie. You could probably guess who that is. The one that got booted out for being a threat.
Eleanor Sturkar? Yeah. But the same thing happened in Alberta, didn't it? Then Danielle Smith emerged out of that wreckage, where there were the right was all over the place, wasn't it? So obviously, there are lessons to be learned. It has happened.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of people saying, John, take the win and just say, you've taken this as far as you can. And pass the baton and exit with class.
Yeah. Somebody here, I just have to look at the comments here. Very, very different subject, but saying that hot dogs are a luxury and now you can't afford them. I mean, do you consider Costco and IKEA hot dogs to be hot dogs? Because I feel like that's like the only time I ever eat hot dogs. Those two places. They're $1 at IKEA and obviously 1.50 with a Pepsi or Coke now at Costco.
I would say the hot dogs at IKEA are a couple of rungs below the Costco hot dog.
They look a bit sad. Even in the image, the promotional image, it just looks like a toy for a dog or something.
They should probably say to IKEA, all you can eat hot dogs. But I believe at IKEA they have $1 breakfast. They were promoting that, and that's pretty good.
Their food is actually generally quite good. They do like fish and chips and meatballs and stuff like that.
We used a buddy of mine, a lawyer, we used to trade lunches all the time, and I took him to IKEA once, and I said, "Go ahead, have 6, 7 entrees. I don't care. Fill your boots."
They do beer though as well, so he could have done that. Could have got like 10 beers.
All you can eat. Calgarians got to change. They got a new mayor. And this is the first time in 45 years that the mayor did not win re-election. And she was definitely on woke island, as they would say. And it's a tough place to do woke island in Calgary. But I guess they'd had enough. She finished in third place. She didn't even make like in second place. Like she finished in third place. Like clearly clearly the message was strong. See you later. Thanks for coming out.
And yeah, she blamed the teachers. She's not a fan of teachers either.
And this is here's Jason Kenney's reaction to her losing her job. He congratulated Jeremy on the win. And he said, usually when an incumbent's defeated, I usually thank them for their time. But in this case, he's going to make an exception. Oh, Jason.
He's all over the shop now, isn't he, Jason Kennedy? He's like, Jason Kenney, not Kennedy. He's just constantly on TV now, isn't he? I think is he working towards something?
New job,
trying to get his face out there?
But Jason Kenney lost a little bit of luster, when he was having parties on the rooftop there during COVID, when he was locking you up and he was partying like it's 1995. Him and Gavin Newsom.
And Nancy Pelosi, don't forget.
Nancy Pelosi, yeah. There's a couple of, I talked to John Carpe, that couple of people that were true to their values and stuck with it all the way. Kristi Noem of South Dakota. If you took South Dakota versus North Dakota locked down like crazy. South Dakota didn't do anything, not even a mask mandate, nothing. The numbers are statistically the same.
Similar in different European countries as well. Like Sweden is the famous example. But it was all mishandled, wasn't it? It was all a disaster.
They tried to make Kristi Noem out to be the devil. And again, this is this WHO thing, and that's what we talked about. Go listen to John Carpe. This is the thing. We're going to turn over our response to another pandemic to the WHO. So they're going to do this one thing fits all. They're going to lock you down. Just think of what they did in China compared to what they did here even. That was next level lockdown where they were throwing you in vans. Literally throwing you in a van.
They were smashing the doors down. Remember those videos from inside the apartments? And they were smashing them in.
It looks like they're after the Dancing Queen there in Toronto. According to a new poll, majority of Torontos think that the Dancing Queen may be running out of time.
What I have to say here is I admire her ability to look ridiculous, even when she's in this very serious pose. She's like,
I mean, look at these photo ops. Look at these photos, right? Just like, let's make it look very dramatic. Like she is. Like the people said that Justin Trudeau was a narcissist. Like, holy cow! Like here, I mean,
they call that effect chiaroscuro. It's like Michelangelo, isn't that beautiful? Or Caravaggio, rather.
If things don't work out with Katy Perry, Justy, you may want to call up Olivia.
They can dance together.
And in the big news in Japan, a couple of big statements. I think she's the first female prime minister as well in Japan. Banzai, as they would say. And
I don't think they would say that.
Somebody said it. Anyway, here's a little speech from her.
私は外国人との穏やかな、お互いに思いやりを持って生きられる付き合い方はどうすればできるんか。 一遍ゼロベースで考えるつもりです。毎年毎年、私たちと、文化や何もかもがあんまりにも、違う人たちをまとめて入れていくと、いうこと。この政策は、一旦考え直さなあきません。経済的な動機でやってきて難民を主張する人、きちんとお帰りをいただきます。また、不法滞在の人たちにも厳格に法律を守っていただきます。私は外国人との穏やかな、お互いに思いやりを持って生きられる付き合い方はどうすればできるんか、一遍ゼロベースで考えるつもりです。毎年毎年、私たちと、文化や何もかもがあんまりにも、違う人たちをまとめて入れていくと。
You know, the nice thing about Japanese, one of my first girlfriends is Japanese, they could be telling you something that, bad, and it still sounds really nice.
I really like. I was literally thinking that, and I was going to say that. I really like the sound of Japanese.
Hey, just like basically,
it's such an interesting language, isn't it?
Get out of our country, or adapt to the culture, obey the laws, but very nicely though. You can leave.
Yeah, with bows. you are deported.
Get out.
But I do think it's interesting because Japan, obviously, they've had a little bit of an experiment with immigration, but nothing like in the West. And the Japanese have just with this tiny, relatively tiny amount of immigration, they've just said, nah, all gone, please. Just like that. It's kind of, it's interesting because Japan is kind of the most Western, non-Western country, isn't it? As people often say. And yet they've shown now how they differ because they've just said, we don't want this. And then most people in Japan seem to agree.
I'm making my first trip to Tokyo here in November. And hopefully I don't get deported. I don't plan to overstay. I don't plan to break any laws, so I think it should be good.
Well, don't shout banzai. That's no. Probably the first bit of advice.
I don't even know what that means, obviously. So I mean,
it's like it's a war cry.
Oh, is it? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it might raise a few eyebrows if you do that.
Opa. Here's a war cry. Here, this Jen Psaki. Holy cow, she's. This is international news. I mean, she's on another level. She's on MSNBC right now, which is like CBC on X level or whatever bias. But here, let's listen to what she has to say about J.D. Vance.
I think the little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you. And that he's willing to do anything to get there. And that your whole iteration you just outlined, I mean, he's scarier in certain ways.
He's smarter.
That's good. You can go and listen to that. But listen to that.
What a stupid, glib, nasty thing to say about a woman and a couple's marriage. But that's just her in a nutshell. Such a glib, foolish, unpleasant person.
That's the Democrats and the
been.
Liberals in a nutshell. This is what they do. They push fear and nonsense. Which vice president doesn't think he's going to be president? Isn't that the kind of the natural transition there? You know what I mean?
It's also in politics. Most people in politics want to be the leader of their country. That's just how it works. Most MPs in the Canadian Parliament want to be prime minister, believe it or not.
But
that's what puts them there in the first place.
They're already working on their attack things for J.D. Vance and say, oh, he's more dangerous than Trump because he's actually smarter. It'd be tough to argue that anybody is smarter than Trump in what he did. Do you know what I mean? He comes across as sometimes like a buffoon, but I think he's probably one of the craftiest guys out there.
Well, the results speak for themselves, don't they, with Donald Trump? Yeah. Whatever you might think of his intelligence or anything else about him, he's been a success, hasn't he? And he set certain objectives and he's achieved them. So you call it what you want. You can call it intelligence if you want, but he's a winner, basically, isn't he?
I'm going to win so much, you're going to get tired of me winning.
And that's the funniest thing about that quote is he was tired at that time, wasn't he? Done his 100th rally or something. He's like, "You got to be tired of winning," as he nearly keels over.
We got our own mantra on this show. We're going to be right so many times, you're going to get tired of us being right, and not right to center, but right. Because where are these stories on CBC? Where are they? Here's Bernie Sanders. This is Amazon plans to replace more than 500,000 jobs with robots. I mean, they've been doing it already. This has been going on with Amazon forever. I mean,
Yeah,
most of their
they've had them in the warehouses for ages.
Distribution warehouses are already filled with robots.
Yeah. And that is very on brand for Amazon because they've been accused many times in the past of treating their staff like robots. So now they can have actual robots.
And then, just in fairness, we're going to give the... this is that Kamala Harris tweet. We're going to let you listen to a couple seconds of it, but we're going to give her the final word today.
I've pictured before, haven't I? Isn't this interesting? So interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the Madam Vice President, Kamala Harris.
We have to stop doing this. They're not playing fair. They're not playing fair. They're playing with fire, and we need to play with fire too.
She is everything that we want in a president, a vice president, as a human being. So just being able to see her, be in her presence, and just be here, I can't put it into words.
What do you think the Democratic Party can do to get the trust back of voters who have, voted blue for so long, but now feel like there's, a degree of uncertainty or disorganization is probably a better word.
There are Democrats who are doing very good and important work that are about fighting for the everyday needs of the American people.
That's good.
I think part of the...
That's good. I can't do 107 seconds. But she's really good at flogging her book. She's coming to Toronto, right, in November.
Is she? Is she really good at that? I don't know. She's trying. But that content, I'll tell you what, where she's like, isn't this interesting? Oh, very interesting. It's like, you call that content, Kamala? You're going to have to try harder than that.
Have I been here before? Have I? Have I been to the border? You're the border czar. Have I been to the border?
That's what makes her so cringe, is that she tries to create this kind of banter, doesn't she? And it's like this idea that, you're sharing in her joke.
But right now...
Some people have that talent, don't they? But it's just like, no, it's like, we're not involved. This is just weird.
Everybody's making money off of Joe Biden's, still living carcass there because, Jake Tapper was flogging his book for a while. Now Kamala's flogging her book, and they're all beating up on Biden, right? Jake Tapper beat up Biden big time. Kamala beat up Biden big time. And then now Karine Jean-Pierre is out there flogging her book. And, she's beating up on the people that were beating up on Biden.
Oh, well, at least she's loyal, and she should be loyal because she was completely unqualified for that job that Biden gave her. So she should be very thankful.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're in complete disarray. Gavin Newsom is, I think he's got Rosemary Barton's job. He's spreading misinformation just on the X level. Gavin Newsom, wow. I don't know,
Have you seen his hair though? It looks like a helmet or something. He's fixes it on in the morning.
I think if Gavin Newsom was a car salesman, he would be the #1 greasy car salesman. He would be the top.
He would sell.
He would be cars. The top rung. He would sell so many cars to so many people.
Oh man!
Basically, it would be called a lemonade dealership, and they would be selling lemons like you wouldn't believe.
He could just sell anything, couldn't he? The slimier, the better. Like a realtor. He would be such an amazing realtor, wouldn't he?
I think they're really worried, the Democrats, that and I think I've heard from some, Stephen, I can't remember his last name. I just blew him. ESPN commentator guy, Stephen. Anyway, he said the Democrats probably have no hope of taking anything away from Rubio, Vance. It could be Vance.
Stephen Smith.
Yeah, Stephen Smith. It could be Vance for 8 years and Rubio for another 8. And, they got the talent pool is so deep on the Republican side, and the talent pool so shallow on the Democratic side. But if
also
you look
people what's his name, DeSantis. Obviously, he screwed up, didn't he, when he challenged Trump? But I'm sure he still fancies himself having a future.
But again, the talent pool is so deep, tough to I think Rubio is definitely some people say he could challenge Trump, challenge Vance. So there's but But, will they have an agreement where they just like, I get 8, you get 8, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, so how does that work, right? So it's kind of like the Oilers of the old days, the Oilers of the dynasty, where they said, look, we could all go make money somewhere else, but let's win some cups here and take less salary. And then once they won a bunch of cups, and they're just like, okay, everybody go get what you need. And, Gretzky got sold and all that stuff. But that's our show.
I don't know
anyway.
about American politics. They stab each other in the back, like at a moment's notice, don't they? And I fully anticipate that there'll be a lot of that when Trump's gone. There'll be a real struggle for the succession.
Well, according to some of the memes, he's going to live past 150 or whatever, because he's got like that thing where he's like...
He eats McDonald's every day, so obviously that's associated with longevity.
I don't believe they did that No Kings right. I don't believe he's a king of the United States. I do believe he's the king of the trolls, though, because he trolls better than anybody.
He's the king of Twitter, isn't he? Yeah. Even though he doesn't go on there anymore.
Anyway, that's our show. Lots of good interviews the last few days. Lots of really good ones, and we're trying to put some clips together, Ned. If you'd like to follow, subscribe, do all those things. I don't have anything else lined up for today as of yet for interviews. I mean, we were jam-packed yesterday. I think I was on for 5.5 hours yesterday. 5.5 hours of talking.
It's a lot of talking.
A lot of talking. And 107 days. How to blow $1.5 billion in 107 days. That's pretty impressive. That alone, that should be the title of that book. That's impressive. Anyway, underfunded, under-equipped, underpaid, and now not even fit housing. Yeah, the guy in the console there, what was his name again? Tom
Summit, yeah.
He's got an $8.8 million Manhattan penthouse, Tom Clark. All who know, I guess. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.